Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. All right, tonight I've got a special guest joining us. We have Daryl Phipps, or Rel, from Perfect Practice Tactical up in Milford, Pennsylvania. He came in and is going to be joining us this evening for a little chance to talk. A couple of instructors talking about different things we've seen, not only in the firearms industry as a whole, but different things we've run into as instructors, the students that we're seeing these days, a chance for everyone to share information and learn. As always, trying to build the community and build knowledge base among all of us. I'm not a big believer in being competitive. I believe in being far more collaborative. We're all in this boat together. We need to all work together, and the more we can work together, the better off we're going to do in the long run. So, welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here. Hey, Roy. People tuning in. A couple of people that are locals, good friends of mine.
Okay.
Jumping in. That's good.
I was going to say I'm in the process of pulling it up right now to see. As always, nothing but the highest quality production going on around here. If you all only knew behind the scenes what we're involved with. So
many flashbacks already from when I used to podcast.
Well, at least
so many of the same phrases, just nothing but the best here.
Hey, I understand.
Yeah.
What's that old saying? It's like, hey, we're going to get through it one way or the other today.
One way or another.
Yeah, we're actually live tonight, not only on the Gun Club's YouTube and Rumble channels, but he is also simulcasting it over onto his Facebook platform. So you're going to be seeing us a few different places. And again, that's great. The more we get the message out, the more we get to do. The more people we reach. So tell us a little bit about yourself and Perfect Practice Tactical.
Wow, where to start? I kind of grew up around guns, not so much in the most legal sense of the word, but we'll leave that fourth wall up for a while. But I grew up around guns. I was, grew up very familiar with guns, not religiously familiar, but I think I shot my first gun when I was probably about 8 years old. And it was a 20 gauge. We were driving out west and we pulled over and Dad let me take a shot at a can on a fence with the 20 gauge. And I remember him saying, remember, you got to hold it tight. You got to bring it tight in. Otherwise it's going to kick. And I didn't. So it kicked the hell out of me. And I hit the shot. I hit the target. So I remember my eyes welling up and me going, did I hit it? And he goes, yeah, you hit it. So that was probably the first time I ever shot a gun. And when I was 10 years old, I was shooting my stepdad's 44 Bulldog, which was like a mule. It's like a snub-nosed revolver. The thing was insane.
I was going to say, I laugh. I had a friend of mine. He's like, oh, I've got a little Charter Arms Bulldog. And I'm like, that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a two-hander all day long.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of grew up around guns on one level or another. And then, came into adulthood. I was living in New Jersey at that point. So guns weren't really much of a thing. And then I enlisted in the National Guard and became military when I was 23. And, just fell in love with guns all over again because of my exposure there. But I was a tanker. So my gun carried me everywhere.
You drove your gun. Yeah.
Yeah, I drove my gun. So, but we had, as tankers, the M16 wasn't really the weapon of choice for tankers because there's no room to swing one of those bad boys around inside a turret. Right. So we all had pistols. So that just kind of stuck on that level. And then, I eventually got out of the military in 2005. And then about 7 years ago, I moved here to Pennsylvania from New Jersey. And that was when I was really able to just begin this love affair with firearms, for lack of a better term. And, the laws are so different here in PA versus New Jersey, even though New Jersey is finally starting to come around a little bit. It's still night and day. That, in the last 7 years is when I really started getting more into it because you're able to get more into it here in Pennsylvania. Right. And there, I can own firearms here that I could never own in New Jersey.
Right.
And I've always kind of had a knack for being able to teach people stuff. I guess I just have an ability to connect a little bit with whoever I'm teaching, whatever it is that I'm teaching. So it just kind of fell in line where I ended up becoming an instructor. And it was really by accident. A friend of mine who used to be part of a training group that I was in a couple of years ago said, "Hey, I'm going to become a USCCA certified instructor." And I was like, "Well, how do you do that?" And he told me about it. So I actually went and I got certified with him. And, it just kind of stuck from there. And then it was part-time,
Mm-hmm.
and then this past year, it just started growing to a point where I started thinking about, maybe I could do this full time. I wonder if I could do this full time. So like I kind of got to that point where I was like hemming and hawing about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the universe just went, well, guess what? We're going to take a situation that's out of your control and we're going to eliminate your position at your job. And now you have your chance to do this full time. So that's kind of what's going on. So now I'm doing this full time and doing nothing else. And now I'm even more of a maniac about it. So,
well, there you go. There you go. It was interesting to me. I know when I looked through your website, it was like I think you offer far more variety of classes than what we offer from a standpoint of firearms. Now, ours is a little different just because of the fact that my first, I won't say first love, but my first career, primary career, was EMS and EMS education. I've been a paramedic since, 98, I got out of paramedic school, 92 EMT basic, worked all the way up to county municipal services, was deputy director for a while, and finally said the politics are just, I've got to go. No, this isn't going to work. I'll crawl the walls. And so I started doing EMS education on my own. And then through the pandemic and stuff, it was like, okay, I've got a training facility. I've got a beautiful classroom. I've got places to teach. And I've always been, a firearms aficionado and enjoyed it myself and done back and forth. So it's like, okay, I'll go down this road. Why not? And it's interesting. I can do CPR in the morning, stop the bleed in the afternoon, and do private lessons for someone on the range that evening. It'll be perfect. It also gives me a little bit of a change of pace from EMS.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's pretty cool. The USCCA curriculum and the classes that you can offer through USCCA when you go through your certifications it's really amazing, the options that you can have where you can split things up, and like you said, I do have a lot of things on my website that you don't see on a lot of other websites, and there's kind of a reason for that. It's by design. In PA, you don't have required training in order to get your concealed carry. All you got to do is pass a background check.
right.
So any training that people go through is going to be because they want to go through that training,
Right.
So I kind of try to make it so that it's training that people are going to want to go through, because the reality is here in Milford, PA, and in Pike County, PA, we are saturated with firearms instructors, just as we are all over PA and a lot of your other free gun states, so to say.
Right.
So I kind of have that mindset of, if you bring something to the table that nobody else brings to the table, you'll never have to worry about competition. And it's not that I look at it like, oh, you're not competition, but I just look at it like I'm bringing stuff to the table that I have people who drive all the way out from Long Island to come and do with me. So that means I'm doing something right, and I'm happy about it,
And having grown up on Long Island, I know what that drive is all about.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I had a very, very close friend of the family. She went to school at Bucknell. And her father and mother had retired and moved to Florida and then out to Arizona because he was having some arthritic issues and everything else. And my dad and I used to help her get to and from her place in New York down to Bucknell. So I know that drive way too well.
Right.
So we got Minnie is in the chat tonight. Minnie, hope you're having a wonderful evening. She's one of my prodigy students, if you will say so.
Okay.
She is, I think, she is like my success story that we absolutely adore because she is she works for a legal office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 in her real world. Her husband was doing IT for my medical teaching business. And I've also known him when he was in EMT. I've known them as a couple, and we've all hung out together a few times, gone out for more than one plate of sushi together. Well, we're sitting over sushi one night, and I'm watching the crimes, and just the world's going a little bit crazy. And I'm like, look, I'm not worried about you, dumbass, because, if, someone, boogeyman grabs you, he'll throw you back. As far as her, she's working late nights downtown when they're prepping for something. Her schedule gets a little crazy. I want to know if, Minnie Mouse over here, they ran a home-based Disney travel agency, so it's justified. I want to know if she can take care of herself.
Right.
And, and he's not much of a gun person anyway. He's special. Let's just say he might vote a little bit blue if he ever bothered to vote.
Right.
And he and I have had our discussions. But anyway, I'm not particularly politically correct around him. But it's like she made the comment of, if the world goes to hell, I'm going to Sully's house because I know what he's got. I'm like, about that much of what I've got. So,
yeah. And the other thing is, unless you're somebody who's really, really close to me and the world goes to hell, if you show up at my house, you don't want to do that.
Right. You best be announced.
Yeah. Better be expected.
Yeah. And I told her, I said, well, you're always welcome. Your smiling face is always welcome, and I'll even turn on the coffee pot for you. As far as him, I'm not quite sure yet. And she's like, but what if it to keep me happy? I said, okay, to keep you happy, maybe, but he's going to put on a red hat and start pledging allegiance to DJT before he goes much further. And so anyway, he's like, and if I won't, I'm like, I'll put one in your kneecap and let them have you. It's really simple. I'll hunt over a baited field. And he looked at me and she's like, I think he'll do it.
Do you really think what do you worry about? Like, a lot of people that are pro firearms do a lot of prepping and they do a lot of training. Like, what do you train for? What do you think is really going to happen with the world? That's a big question that a lot of people don't really get into.
That's a great question. I will say what I am more worried about, and again, I think we saw it during the early part of the Rona stuff, is just supply chain disruptions. A simple supply chain disruption. I'm not thinking, a big, toxic EMP or nuke blast. No, I'm thinking how many people out there are, what do they say, 3 meals away from,
9 meals away from anarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, okay, if, I've watched human beings on videos literally brawling for toilet paper.
Yeah. I've
watched human beings, what do you do? I mean, what's going to happen when someone comes home and goes, I can't get food for my kids?
Mm-hmm.
It's, if someone goes to the bank and for some reason the financial system is shut down, okay, maybe a problem, but we'll see how bad that goes. On the other side of the coin, if you've got, again, people who can't find food for their kids, everything is shut down. I've seen what a power outage in an ice storm did during the blizzard of 93 up in North Carolina. People were talking about eating their neighbors and their kids. So, I was working at Asheville Regional Airport at the time. I got stuck at the airport. Fortunately, I was a volunteer firefighter at the time. So when we had no power, no heat, and a not really well-insulated airport, I was in the back at National Car Rental, sleeping on the floor in full bunker gear. And I was, pretty well set up. And I also had a bedroll with me. I had some, emergency rations in the car. And it was like, okay. I watched people, literally airport employees, break into the airport restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking break into the gift shop, break into the restaurant. Vending machines were getting tipped over by airport employees.
Yep.
If you can't eat, you can't,
Yep.
So when I look at what I prep for, I look at a major supply chain train wreck because, we've got a Walmart distribution about 20 miles from the house.
Right.
But
that'll burn to the ground.
Well, the thing is, it'll be empty in 3 days.
Yeah, and burn to the ground.
Well, even without that, it's, the stores are going to be empty.
Yeah.
If there's not food on the shelves, people are going to get crazy fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely, you're right along the same lines of how I look at things. Like, I don't look at, I'm involved in a training group or a small group of people that do some really cool stuff that other people have to come and pay to do. We do a lot of training on all kinds of different levels, and it's not just firearm stuff.
Right.
It's first aid stuff, it's prepping stuff, and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm with a South Carolina group that we do that, and they hold regular meetups. I've been kind of a slacker on it,
mm-hmm.
But I mean, the last couple of times they did upstate meetups, it was really funny because the person who was coordinating the upstate meetup says, okay, I need you to do something medical, like a bleeding control or something like that. Because I'm, again, paramedic, 27 years.
Mhm.
So I was going to do all that. And then all of a sudden, another one of the guys who was there, who was a paramedic, he said, well, that's what I thought I was planning on doing. He said, well, you never called me back. So I got Sully set up to do it. So he asked me the night before, can you do something on guns?
Right.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Hey,
but again, I've got sort of that dual.
Right.
Which side am I going?
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of I look at things.
I'm watching your chat. I love some of the comments I'm hearing.
Yeah, these are a lot of my friends are jumping in there. That's James Bauernfein. He's actually a law enforcement firearms instructor as well.
Okay.
Too. He's a good friend of mine. We went to high school together. Evie Asensio in there. That's my mom. Kelly Shelby, Justin Thorson, all these people. They're some great people, and it's funny because there's so many different levels of the spectrum in all of that. Kelly Shelby is actually also coming in as a USCCA instructor as well.
Fantastic.
She's already an NRA instructor, so I brought her over to the dark side.
Okay. Honestly, I will admit, and I have to say this, I am not active with USCCA at this point. I got it in 2020, and I kept it up to like 2023. And when I was up for my recert in 2023, I didn't have enough students. Okay. Partially because we were going onto the other side with the medical and pushing a lot with the online training academy.
Yeah.
My full-time job, for those of y'all who don't know, I'm the program director for VALOR Medical Services, which runs a online training academy, not for new EMS personnel, but for recertification. We need so many hours continuing education, and we are nationally accredited. So, I mean, if someone's watching in Houston and they need Con Ed hours for their paramedic license that expires in March, they can actually do it on our academy.
That's pretty cool.
Writing, outlining, submitting to our medical board, editing is needed, record the videos, edit it all, build it all, write the course packages, write the test questions, etc., validate the tests for something like 50 different programs.
Right. Nice.
Like 50 different hour-long courses. So, yeah, not only did my liver take a hit, but my firearms instructing took a little bit of a hit. Yeah. And so my plan is I'm going to get my USCCA back probably in the next 6 months, but it just never.
Yeah, all you got to do is get in touch with your original training counselor, and they'll probably help you recert pretty quick rather than having to go through the whole thing again.
Well,
it's a little bit of an expensive rigmarole.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. My original training counselor was frankly uninspiring, which it was really sad.
That happens.
I'm not going to name names. I think what was going on, and I'll say this as someone who teaches a lot and has been teaching EMS since, pre-2000. I think that she was running a teaching business, and between CWP instructor classes and USCCA classes, I think she was toasty.
Yeah.
I think she was fried. Yeah, and as a result of that, well, we had a little bit of a problem. There were two people in the class. One was an NRA instructor who ran an extensive training business down toward the coast. And then myself, I was sitting next to him. And we both had, teaching time out the, having been the director of education for a county EMS service in 8 years, I probably spent more time in front of a classroom than I did sitting in one.
Right.
And it was, he and I were both like, who is she talking to? And it almost ended up that she was trying to flex on this individual who's also a retired highway patrol.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're going to do it my way or else. And, we went outside at one point on a smoke break, and he's looking at me. He goes, are you feeling the heat that I'm feeling just because we're comfortable doing this already? And one of her scenarios was you have to set up a class that you have to basically set up a basic CWP class or a basic CCHDF class
Mhm.
and have to come up with everything you're going to do for it.
Right.
Okay, great. Real good idea. And we're a team of 2. And so he grabbed a notepad. He goes, I got to burn one. Let's go outside. So he and I went outside to work on it. She comes outside. She said, you already done? He goes, about halfway, but we're doing it while we smoke. And she said, well, don't you need any notes? No, not really. Well, we come back in, and at that point, it was the end of the second day, and I think the smartass side was taking over on both of us.
Mhm.
Far be it from me. I was adjunct faculty at the State Fire Academy for 5 years, specializing in hazmat technical rescue, EMS educator, teach all the ABC classes, course faculty. And this is, again, when I'm running a training center. And it's like, okay. And so she's like, okay, so how are you going to do yours? How are you going to PR it out? And it's like, well, I've got our website, I've got our Facebook site, I've got our Twitter feed. And he starts going through. He's got the same things already set up. And it's like, we're using Buffer to auto post it and this, that, and the other. And we've got the graphics. Okay, now what are you going to do for space? And it's like, we've got space for this many. I've already got a training center. And so we don't have to rent it out. We rent it by the month and it's fine. And okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And again, it was all these things. And he and I had put together how many 100 classes before. And she's like, well, so you just think you've got everything covered, don't you? And he's like, did we miss something? And it was, by the time we walked out of there, I'm telling him, just look, bro, keep your mouth shut, get your card, go home, we'll be done. And we actually jokingly made the comment that, as we walked out, we were going to basically head down the road to the closest place and both have a beer and laugh at the class. Now,
Right.
I know USCCA has higher standards than that. And I know that he wrote a letter.
Right.
I was basically at the point of, I'm done. I met my objective.
Mhm.
I love USCCA's programs. I think they've got fantastic programs. I follow their channel. I follow Tom Greaves' channel, everything else. I bought all their books just to have in my reference library.
Right.
But I would never go back to that class.
How do you do your classes? Like, because we're both USCCA instructors, right?
Right.
So, like, what do you set your class group numbers up to? Because I keep mine capped at 4 to 5 people tops. Like, I'll do 5 or even 6 if it's a family or a group that's booking as one. But I keep my classes real small for a bunch of reasons.
Well, I do when I'm doing my concealed carry, I'll do up to 8 usually for my South Carolina concealed carry class. And so that was the other thing. We had to, for our South Carolina stuff, we had to write our own book. So I wasn't even using the USCCA books. I got a stack of them here. But I was doing, using the book I wrote for concealed carry and all that stuff. I do the classroom session as, the group of 8. And then if I'm doing the shooting solo, sometimes, depending on how we schedule it, I'll do the shooting as a second day. And on the second day, I schedule them 1 hour blocks, 2 by 2.
Right.
And that works out really, really well for me. And I let them know, yes, I know we're drawing it out to 2 days, but it's more respectful of your time because there's 8 people in here. If you want to stand around while I go through 3 other groups, you're welcome to burn your time.
Right.
How about you 2 meet me 12 to 1? You 2 meet me 1 to 2. You 2 meet me 2 to 3. And they come into the range. We do the basic loading, unloading, because we've already done it with, I issue out in classroom like little dummy bullets.
Yep. Snap caps.
Basically, SOP is, no live ammo. You get safety checked on the way in the door. No live ammo in the classroom. We've got Ziploc bags. If you want to empty your mags and go put it in your car, that's fine. It doesn't come past this point. And at that point, depending what caliber they have, we issue these.
Yeah, snap caps, yeah.
So we'll go through, and I get these by like sets of 50. And usually I'll tell people, I'll leave them with 1 or 2 a piece of whatever their caliber is by the end of the day. Because that way they've got something to practice safely with, if they've got a pistol.
Susan Bonnet is asking in the right. I mean to cut you off, but Susan Bonnet is asking where in South Carolina you are.
Upstate South Carolina. Our office is based in Lawrence County at 107 Ashley Lane. I teach all over upstate. Hope that answers the question. But yeah, I'll leave them with a couple of these to take home to practice with, manipulate. They should be comfortable manipulating the firearm.
Yep.
Now, if they come back to a second level with me, I'll ask them how many of them still have these, and we use these to practice a failure to fire.
Yeah.
So if I'm loading your magazines and I put 2 good ones in, and then I slip, a dummy in and put a couple more good ones on top of it, bang, bang, click. Okay, now you're going to do your tap, rack, and ready drill.
Yep. Yeah, I do that in my Academy Level 3 classes.
That's in, I do Guns 101, which is basic safety. It's not even a live shooting class. We go through everything about guns, and we go from revolvers, pistols, ARs, shotguns, what these are.
Right.
And basic safety 4 rules. Then I'll do the concealed carry. And then beyond that, we have like LFE, a lethal force encounter. And I do something similar to CCHDF. Again, I love their programs. It's nothing against their programs. I mean, I took the countering the mass shooter, and to me, it's one of the best programs I've seen in a long time.
It really is, yeah.
And I did that
so much
for a
good
bunch.
Information.
I was doing that for a bunch of church groups and everything else. And again, teaching the TECC, because we teach TECC level 1 and 2, and we're in the process of working on a level 3. So
right. Nice. Yeah, I do the in Academy Level 3. So I split my stuff up. So if you do the concealed carry course with me, it's a 2-day course, right? Because USCCA has it set up for you to do your concealed carry in 1 day, which is ridiculous because it's just too much to do in 1 day. It can be done, but it's brain melting.
It depends on who you've got. And
right. If you got somebody with a lot of experience, you can blast through a concealed carry course in a couple of hours and then do your testing and your cert.
Right.
But I have the concealed carry course set up in a 2-day course. And then, it's everything on all levels. So some of it we can blast through depending on the level of experience in the students. But then I take all of the stuff that's in all of the concealed carry, the CCHD. I split up into 3 sections, and that's where I make Academy levels 1, 2, and 3. And in Academy 3, that's where Academy 1 is basic. It's all the basic intro where you're getting into triggers, what they do, the parts of the gun, hammers versus striker fire, and all the basic just education of the nuts and bolts in it, and then we do familiarity firing on the live fire session. And then in basic 2, that's when we get into more of the actual habits of sight picture, grouping, shot grouping, breathing, trigger press, all of that stuff, actually where we start building the habits of putting the bullet in the same spot every time. And then in Academy Level 2, I actually do shooter Level 1, which is 3, 5, 10, 3, 5, 7, 10, and 15-yard distances at 10 yards each, which falls into what New Jersey requires in their concealed carry and the CCAR requirements. So that's what I do in Level 2. And then Level 3, we get into, and we also do legal use of force in Level 2. And that's a very in-depth course there. And then Level 3, I actually have the whole day is mostly in classroom. They're all mostly in classroom except for the range time. But Level 3 is where we get into actually putting it all into practice. And I have the recoil guns, the laser ammo recoil guns, on the 10-foot screen. And I have the Scenario Trainer 2.0. So we actually, before we even go to the range, we're putting it all into practice. We're actually having the students draw.
Oh, wow.
Having them actually give commands to the screen, because in the Scenario Trainer 2.0, I can control what the actors are going to do, whether they're going to draw on you or whether they're going to walk away. So
right.
It's a beautiful system, and it's so in-depth. And it's great to be able to split that up, because you can spend more time on the things you need to spend time on, and you can glaze over the things that the student already has a good grasp on.
Right.
And then once we go to the range for the live fire portion on Academy 3, we actually do the Shooter Academy, the Protector Academy level 2, which is quick target acquisitions, where we got to pick up the gun and pop 2 rounds, actually hit a target at 4 yards within 6 seconds. And then the next stage in that would be 3 shots, combat reload, 3 more shots, and then put it down. You have 12 seconds. And then the next is your stoppages, your weapon stoppages. So you've got 15 seconds to do 2 3-round magazines, but you've got 2 different stoppages in there, and they may be back to back in the same mag. You don't even know.
Yeah.
Because I load your mag and then I hand them to you without you seeing them. So it's a lot of really good stuff, and it's so much fun. Like my students love the scenario trainer, because that I can't tell you how many of them are like, I got to take a break, man. My heart is pounding out of my chest, because it becomes real speed at that point.
Now, which scenario trainer do you use?
It's the smokeless range. It's the laser ammo scenario trainer 2.0.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's great. It's got over 100 scenarios in it, and you can branch them all off.
Right. See, I've been looking at possibly investing in something like that down the line.
Do
it. That's on the radar. I'll put it that way. Right now,
I'm listening, but I'm stepping off camera.
That's fine. We get so much of a mix as far as what we're doing. We've got right now as much EMS training and medical training as we do. We're wallowing in that a lot of times, and what we're seeing a lot of times now. The other laugh I have, and again, I'm not throwing rocks at USCCA because I really respect their programs, but when I contacted them about becoming an instructor for EFAF, and they told me I had to take the course first, and I sat there and said, "You're joking, right?"
Right.
And I'm like, "No, you're joking." And it was something about I don't know, paramedic instructor license up here somewhere on the desk. It's like, what?
Right.
And so, I'm a platinum or elite member or whatever, so I get it free with my membership. It wasn't even about paying for it, but it was like, really? I got to take it? Okay.
Yeah.
So then I was working on some stuff for EMS education one night, and I took a laptop and just set it over here and let it go and answered questions occasionally.
Yeah,
but we're getting a lot of the TECC. The level 1 is the active bystander. That's your school staff, and I don't necessarily mean just teachers. Our team did one really, really cool at the beginning of not this school year, but the previous school year, right after all the crap had happened in Uvalde. Our crew got together, and our instructor curriculum development team said, okay, let's offer this free to anyone. Very simply, we'll do it with, any school district employee. I don't care, bus driver, cafeteria, janitorial, principal, to any of the school districts in the county or in the surrounding area. And we offered that program out, and we did the number of sessions. It was just wallowing in it. Right. We then turned around, and the level 2 is for non-EMS responders, which is basically if your fire department runs EMT level or above, then you're looking at level 3 for those EMTs. But if you have people on there who are not, then it'll be level 2, which can be law enforcement, anyone who's responding from an outside agency. I don't care whether it's police, anyone who's responding, sheriff's office, county constables, so you get them on the same page of the playbook. Then going through, level 3 is EMTs, paramedics. And we did those programs and, just hours and hours of that. And that's kind of where putting all that together and doing a bunch of that is also kind of why I was a bit slack on getting my students in. Quite honestly.
Right. I'm surprised you don't move more aggressively towards the basic first aid stuff to get your student minimum.
Well, the thing is, we teach the ASHE, American Safety and Health Institute, CPR, first aid, advanced first aid, emergency first responder, advanced cardiac life support, and now this edition they've gotten rid of their pediatric advanced life support. We're also teaching that.
Right.
Beyond that, we're teaching for the National Association of EMTs, pre-hospital trauma life support, and advanced medical life support. And those are like 16-hour, 2-day classes that, and honestly, it was something I had to let go.
Right.
And, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of EMS agencies had let their training really slack. And so they were I was catching demand there, really.
Right. Yeah. So I'll tell you how I did it. Like when I first got into it, it was 2022, I believe. And I think that was when I officially did it. It was 2022. And so I was terrified of that because it's only a minimum of 20, right, that you have to get in order to maintain your cert for every year. So I was terrified because like I'm new into this and, I've never had a business before. So I'm like, how the hell do I do this? So the way I did it was if you get like a Legion Hall or something like that, rent it real cheap. Or if you're a member of the Legion Hall, you can get it even cheaper. So I basically threw a couple of legal use of force classes. And I threw them real cheap, like $5-10. It wasn't a matter of making money at that point. It was just a matter of getting people in the door so that I could have registered students. And, I did that. I knocked out those first 20 real fast. Right. And then after that, it took the pressure off me. So because the guy that I certified with, he went the whole year and didn't really have a lot of the mindset to be aggressive with his marketing, I guess. And so when it came time for, the reset, he didn't have his 20, and he called them and they did him a favor. They hooked him up and they reran him anyway. But it's just a matter of like, there's ways where you can actually do it to.
Yeah. And I got my 20 the first couple of years. And then the last year, I can honestly say that even, and that they talked to me at one point. I asked them and they said, oh, well, you can put classes online and this, that, and the other. Yeah. And I've got a platform I can teach virtually. I can teach virtually anytime. And the thing was, I put a couple up. I didn't get any, signing up for it. And at the same time, if I'm blocking that time out, I'm not writing curriculum for something for our annual subscription. And it was like, look, again, nothing against the programs, but it was like, if I've got to let something go.
Did you just use the USCCA website, or did you like funnel out into your own website?
Into our own website, but the interesting thing I've found around here is, because we have a SCCWP class now, I could use those students, but during the time when I was writing curriculum and we were having curriculum development meetings that were going till 3 a.m. all the time. We were not, I wasn't even worried about teaching CWP. I went about 6 months and I didn't even go to the range.
Right.
I didn't put pants on unless I had to leave the house.
Right.
I mean, it was sweatpants and a t-shirt every day and, writing curriculum after curriculum because, just to give you an idea, let's see here if I can pull this up.
I'm working on bringing online courses to perfectpracticetactical.com. Hopefully by the end of January. I've actually got my hands on a platform through a friend of mine who's a developer. And it's basically the same thing as like, when you take the online hunter safety course and you have to actually watch the videos and go through, you can't fast forward them. And then you have to answer the questions in order to move on. So I've actually come across access to that kind of stuff so that I can actually broaden my base.
Remind me to look up. I get emails all the time from a company wanting to give me a free trial of something like that. Now, for us right now, it would not be beneficial. I don't think. I looked at it. It looked good. It looked really interesting.
Right.
But it wouldn't be beneficial to us, quite frankly, because we're already moved into where we are.
Right. Well, here's where the benefit for that would really come into play. I know it sounds more like we're selling people how to run businesses, but like the benefit that I'm looking at where that will come into play for me is obviously my bread and butter is here when you come to
Right.
me and
Right.
we have an in-person class and then I bring you to the range. But when I can set up stuff like a legal use of force class that you need to take for your state to be required in order for you to get the thing, and then you can just take that class online for $20. I didn't have to do anything. I don't have to be there anymore because it's not even like a matter of me teaching it live. It's literally a module that you have to pass in order to continue on. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Chris Gianella just jumped in. Chris, how's it going, man? He's an FFL in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Alpha Firearms.
Welcome aboard, sir.
He's good people.
Yeah. But no, I'll show you what my, day job was and kind of how I got a little bit sideways. Let's see. Pull this one up. This is what we were doing full time. And if you look at this, and here's some of our courses and stuff we were doing. You might even recognize that gray-haired fool right there doing a little special needs. And
that's pretty cool.
Writing curriculum for all of these. And this is our classroom here.
Yeah.
So when we were dealing with all that stuff, there was, I'll say, just a window of, I didn't see having other hours. If that, there's only so many hours in the day, and those are all for any EMTs, advanced EMTs, or paramedics on the channel. Definitely, we do have all kinds of stuff on there through VALOR. That's our programs, and again, we also do first responder programs, things like that, on there, and it's kind of fun. Keeps me out of trouble, keeps me going.
Yeah,
but. So it was in the process of setting all that stuff up. I was like, I don't have time. I'm going to have to put something down for a year. And it was funny because when I talked to them, it was about at the 9-month mark. And they said, well, if you haven't been in a classroom in a while, I said, oh, I've been in a classroom, trust me.
Right.
Because I'm on video doing that and writing PowerPoints and slide decks and, meeting with med control with 3 curriculums at a time twice a week and making edits and changing that and then watching video.
Now, do you have teaching space that you rent out somewhere?
We do have a classroom that is our classroom full time that we use. It's VALOR Medical Services is what's on the door, but I've got free run of it for anything I wanted to do.
Nice.
It's a small space up in a little strip mall.
There you go.
And for us, it was, we got a really good deal on it. And there was like a little massage place next door and a little boutique next door. And
so many jokes.
Massage place left, and they got I think there's a hair braiding or weave place next door and an Edward Jones down on the end. And but, for what it is, it's great.
Yeah, I've thought about jumping into brick and mortar, but I still am like, the classroom portion of my stuff is here in my home, and it's nice because I can work at your pace. I'm not working against the clock in a range classroom where I'm paying by the hour to be there.
Right.
We can move at your speed, and again, going back to part of the reason that I keep my classes so small doesn't really have anything to do with the fact that I'm doing it in my home. It has everything to do with the fact that when people are in a big group, they get more intimidated to ask questions, and they're less likely to ask questions or say that they're stumped on something. So that's why I keep it so small. And I've thought about moving into brick and mortar, but if I moved into brick and mortar, I would have to branch out from more than just instructing, I think, and I don't really want to do that. I'd rather wait until I can actually get my own property for an outdoor range, and then I put a classroom on the range, and then it's a whole different ballgame.
Right, and I was going to say, the biggest reason we went with a brick and mortar, honestly, was so many of our things are very equipment intensive. Teaching a trauma class or teaching cardiology or whatever else.
Yeah, and you're not doing firearms so much.
Well, 99% of the time, I'm up there, and it's 9 miles from the house.
Right.
It's fairly inexpensive as far as the rent.
Mhm.
It provides sort of dual use as far as not only storage, but also, all of our stuff is there, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So let's see here. Oh,
So
wow.
have you gotten into like the children's firearm courses or anything like that? Do you do anything like that?
No,
No.
haven't gotten down that road at all.
I do those. I do a 2-day a 2-day, it's a weekend package generally because
Okay.
kids are in school during the week. But it's a 2-day package and it really it's catered to the specific student. Like I keep those even smaller. Those are going to be like siblings or single student.
Yeah.
But I'm also very big on like we haven't really gotten into any of the stuff on like gun laws and restrictions and all that other stuff, but I'm very big on responsibility. That's kind of
Right.
like a huge part of my
Oh, yeah.
training. And I don't allow anybody to book the children's courses without actually having an in-person meeting or an online meeting with myself, the child, and both parents if they're both in the picture. Because it's a huge responsibility to throw something like that in a 10-year-old's hand.
Right.
And if I'm going to put that in somebody's hand, I want to make sure that they understand the importance of the safety. They understand the concept of safety. And, that they're not this kid who is freebasing Ritalin in the bathroom and trying to figure out, left from right. So like I'm kind of picky about who
Right.
I'll take on, and I'm picky about adults that I'll take on too. I've actually had to turn people away because of just certain questions that people will ask have thrown red flags up.
Right.
And, I also have a background service that I use.
Right.
If somebody throws up a red flag or two during questions, like while they're approaching me, I'll look them up, and I've actually had to turn
Right.
people away just because, hey, you're a felon and you're not telling me you're a felon. You know what I mean? Things like that, or just like I said, again, the questions that they ask, it just kind of makes me go, no, I'm not going to put a gun in your hand and be standing next to you. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So
And
because I believe as an instructor, that's a big responsibility for us as well.
Right. And that's where, the nice part for me is with the 2-day setup. On day one, there's no live ammo in the room except what's on my belt or,
Yep.
And so, okay, if they don't make it to that, they don't get a range schedule date. We'll just do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how I am with like the kids course. It's day one. There's no actual live ammo. Day one, the first day one is in 2 modules.
Right.
And the first module is like all stuff like dummy pistols,
right.
Like the laser recoil pistols, right? So that they actually, but they're just a laser. That's segment 1. And then in order to get into segment 2 on day 1, they have to pass a quiz. They have to show that they've retained the knowledge. And then we move into segment 2 on day 1, and that's actually pellet guns. So I have a 22 pellet gun rifle, and I have a BB pistol. So that's the second segment in day 1 for the children's course. And then again, you have to make sure that you retain that information, because day 2 is where we get into the live fire, which is a 22 pistol, 22 rifle, and an M&P 1522. So
Now,
again, you got to stage out and then show that you're actually retaining this stuff. It's not like you just pay the money and here we go,
And no, the one thing I have been working on with kids, and again, possibly when I come back to USCCA down the line, I'll go down that road, but is, I'm trying to get more education. And I always tell people on here, if you've got guns anywhere around your house, I've done it with like 5-6-year-olds, and I've been sitting there on the floor with them with my legs crossed and doing the little stop, don't touch, go away, tell an adult, can you do it? And we'll start doing that back and forth, like, and they're having fun. And they always talk about it, what's going on, why do we or the parents will say, oh, don't worry, everything's locked up around our house. I said, really? Yeah. I said, what about the kid who was getting chased by the cops past your kid's grade school and pulled something out and threw it over the fence so he didn't get arrested with it on him and the cops didn't see him do it?
Right.
He rounded the corner and he threw that into the darkness and they don't know he ditched something there. And your
Right.
kids go out on the playground, and what do they find in the sand? Oh, it couldn't be real. And no kids would ever bring one to school and ditch it somewhere. And no kid has ever gone into the play place at any fast food restaurant and found something that, idiot one and idiot two are sitting there talking about what they're going to do. They see a marked unit pull in and they want to get something off their person real quick.
Yep.
What are they going to do? They're going to throw it up. They're not going to leave it on the table.
Right.
It's going to be in the bathroom. It's going to be dumped in the kids' play place. It's going to be stuffed in behind someone's shoes or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then when your kids go crawling through there, what are they going to find?
Right.
They need to immediately know, stop, don't touch, go away, don't adopt. And if we can do that, please.
Right. Yeah. You're in South Carolina, right? You said? I think
yes.
Kelly Shelby is in one of the Carolinas. I can't remember if she's in North or South. So she might not be too far away.
I was going to say, she may be laughing from the whole, stop.
No, I think she's laughing at idiot one and idiot two.
I'm being politically correct as I can at this point.
I hear you.
Now, Conway, okay, you're down at the beach. In fact, you may know the gentleman who is Kelly USCCA or...
She's coming in. She's coming to the dark side.
Okay. I was going to say, she may well know the gentleman who was in the class with me because he's down in that neck of the woods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He and I, like I said, by the time I was just telling him, dude, I know you're this. I know you're that. I know you've done all this. I know you do this. I get it.
What's it like down there for your requirements for a concealed carry in South Carolina?
Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. As far as, they've got to go through a class.
Was it 8 hours, I think?
It's not there was an hour requirement. They actually did away with that a couple of evolutions ago.
Okay.
Because they said to the point of, it used to be when I did mine, it had to be 8 hours. If it was like 7:55, it was not sanctified.
Right.
But then they then said, okay, if an instructor has 2 students, both of whom come in and are extremely competent with firearms, do they have to sit there and pick each other's noses to make 8 hours? Or can we,
right.
They've achieved the objectives. They passed the test with 100. They can write the test. What are we doing?
Right.
And so, she says not 8 hours anymore.
Yeah.
It's primarily focused on the legals. It really is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Up here in PA, there is no training requirement whatsoever to get your license to carry.
Well, they were trying to go with a constitutional carry a couple of years ago when they changed a couple of our things. Our last update was August of 21. Now, I will say this. I understand the constitutional carry side, and I've had wonderful discussions with other instructors. And yes, I understand you don't need a permit to exercise any other constitutional right.
What's your stance on it?
Generally, I support it, but very cautiously because I fear if we go that far, if it goes wrong, we're going to get shut so far back the other way, it won't be funny.
Right.
If that makes fun.
I get it. There's a lot of perspective on all of that stuff. I
did a video on it, and I know I made the comment of, there's 27 states that have it. And if you live in one of those states, just realize, even though you haven't had to go to class or learn the law or this, that, or the other, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And so
100%.
If you do something and you end up in jail for it, 100%. So even if you don't have to do a class, you need to start learning now.
100%. Yeah.
And that's where it puts a lot of onus on the person doing it. Now, when I moved here from North Carolina and I had a permit in North Carolina and I had worked in an ancillary law enforcement fashion briefly in North Carolina, and hung out around a range for hours and hours with a retired firearms instructor from the sheriff's office, I was pretty well competent and would have been competent to be legal then. But how many people, well, what do you mean I can't do blah, blah, blah? How many crazy shooting situations do we see online? How many crazy situations do we see? I mean, I'm very, very, very happy that the gentleman in Texas in Houston, I don't know if you saw that. I'm very, very happy he didn't get charged.
Is that the
But
restaurant?
The taco stand, yeah. I was
Where he
very
shot the guy
afraid.
9 fucking times, that one?
I was very, very afraid that that man had just ruined his life.
You don't think that guy should have gotten charged?
No.
Have you
I
seen
said
the
I was
raw
afraid.
video?
Yes.
Okay, so I share that raw video in my legal use of force. This is the Texas restaurant, right, where the guy was robbing it with a BB gun or an airsoft gun, and he shot him 9 times, right? So I show that video in part of my legal use of force class, and I will say this: that shooting was 9 bullets, and it was 3 separate shootings. And if you look at the legal use of force and the use of force continuum as it's taught by law, that was 3 different shootings, right? So the first 4 shots were
1 through 4 was good.
They were considered righteous, but they were stupid, because if you look at what rule number 4 is, right, our 4 universal safety rules, know your target and beyond, right? In direct line of sight of the shot was another guy sitting across from the guy. And if you watch that video in slow motion, one of the monitors right next to that guy actually gets hit. It changes color and never comes back. So even though the first 4 shots were the first shooting, they were righteous, but they were still stupid. So you can tell that this guy has no training whatsoever. None. Now, as shot number 4 happens, the robber falls and the gun falls out of his hand.
And goes sideways, yes.
And goes underneath the bench. So now shots 5 through 8 are now attempted murder. They're assault with a deadly weapon. On top of whatever else that's a totally separate shooting. That's shooting number 2, and it's a crime. And then the 9th shot is when he squats down over the guy and
picks up the gun
and pops the guy in the head. So the 3rd shooting is murder 1 all day long. I don't care who you are.
Right.
So to date, that guy still has not been charged. He probably won't get charged because it's rootin' tootin' Texas. Has he been charged?
The grand jury no-bailed him on all 9 shots. That's what I was saying.
So he's not been charged?
He is not being charged.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Innocent by the grand jury.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. When I watched that, and what I was saying to begin with is
insane.
I watched it, and I felt the first 4 were justified, but
stupid.
The second 4, what are you thinking, bro? The last one, that's fucking evil.
Yeah.
That's where I was. And I really sat there and I felt bad for the guy because he got caught up in the moment, did something epically stupid, especially that 9th shot. Sorry, it was epically stupid. I'll call it when I see it. And I was really afraid this poor guy has just ruined his life over getting caught up in the moment over something, you know.
I can tell you that
bad for the guy, but
that is a clear case of what happens when you are in a state that does not require you to have training in order to carry, because it is so blatantly obvious that guy does not have training, period. Like he doesn't have any training, none.
And that was something that, to me, again, I felt bad for the guy because I can empathize with him up to about the 5th or 6th shot. And then I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? But no, it came out. They announced it like 2-3 days ago.
Okay.
They presented it to the grand jury, and the grand jury no-billed it.
Blows my mind.
Like you said, it's rootin' tootin' integrity. It blew my mind too. I felt bad for the guy because empathetically, I'm like, bro, you screwed up. But God, I hate telling you screwed up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this poor guy, he seems like he was the legit dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt bad for the legit dude whose life has just been ruined because that idiot walked into the taco stand where he was eating.
I see. Here's the other thing. The other thing too, that like I teach in the legal use of force thing. The thing with legal use of force is it's the difference between life, death, and life in prison. And I say that to all of my students because people don't realize that third option there. And the other thing is you can have a righteous shoot all day long, and even though it's righteous, it could still cost you millions of dollars if you don't have some sort of insurance. And that's where you look at that first shot, or it's actually shot number 2 that goes through the computer monitor right next to the guy who's sitting across the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch that video, you can see it. You can stop it, and you can actually see that computer. If he hit that guy, even though the first 4 shots were a righteous shoot, he would still 100% lose every dime that he could ever make for the rest of his life, because you don't have to get found criminally guilty
civilly,
in order to get sued civilly.
Yeah.
But OJ is a perfect example of that. OJ was found not guilty, and OJ still lost every money, every dime he's ever going to make for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't think about that, and that's, again, where training is just so important. Education is so important.
That's where, on the constitutional side, I have my friends who support the constitutional, and I say, I get where you're going, but, then the next side is, if stuff like that is happening,
I don't see. I'm very libertarian, so this is almost like, this is kind of like a slippery slope for me in this area. But here's how I stand on it. I don't think you should have to have training per se to carry, but you should be able to pass a test. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
I know it's a constitutional right. I get that. It's a constitutional right to keep and bear arms. I get that. I'm with that. But it is one of those things where to put that kind of responsibility on your waist and carry it around in public without knowing when you can and can't, how you can act, what you can put in your body, what you can wear, where you can go, who you can even talk to, without knowing that kind of stuff, and you put that on your body, how self-sabotaging is. You are setting yourself up for the biggest failure of your life, possibly losing your freedom for the rest of your life.
Yes. And that was where, again, when the big discussion went about constitutional, I'm all, gung-ho on
Just take a test. You don't have to take the course. If you can pass the test, there's no need to take a course. That's how I look at it.
And I could see that. I could probably live with that a lot, And you see now with at least with them cutting out the 8-hour minimum stuff with us, most of my classes, depending on how many I've got in it and where they're at.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a private class I'm doing tomorrow. It's someone who went through my class before the 2021 update.
Right.
And never got around to sending it in because he was going through a breakup at the time and launching a business, and he's a super nice guy. And he is, he called me a couple weeks back right before the holidays and said, I never sent mine in, and now it's, expired. I've got to redo. I'm like, okay, tell you what, I'll make a day. You'll just come over to the house. We're going to go through at a very surface level.
Right.
I pulled up my records. He scored a 96 on the state test the last time he took it.
Right.
So we're going to go through a quick update. We're going to probably go to the range, have a little recoil therapy. It is what it is.
Right.
Now, I've also taken people who, one woman came in and she did a Guns 101 and then did a CWP with me. Her husband had passed away. She was an aunt of someone I knew, and there was a box with a gun in it up on the top of the closet, and she didn't even know if it was loaded.
Right.
And she showed up in the classroom like this. And I said, okay, here. And as I started to open it, she says, well, I don't know if it's loaded. I said, okay, it's okay.
Right.
I can do that. And it was one on the tube. And it was a really nice, 365, no optics on it or anything, nothing fancy on it, but it was a stock 365. And she didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And so we went through, let me take these bullets out, put them in a baggie. We're going to send these outside. We're going to give you these little plastic caps, and we're going to go through all this. And boom, go through from there.
What are your most common, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember. What's your most common student? Who comes to you for the most training?
I am getting a lot of the first time, the referral from a friend who they've either done it with me or they know I teach. And, I've had a young gentleman came in who his mom is a nurse who knows me from EMS and has taught with me in EMS in the critical care arena. And she's like, she called me and said, I think you teach us, do you? Yes. I want my son to listen to your version.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your demographic is the word I was looking for. What's your most common demographic?
Very much first time new shooters. I've got 2 ranges I can teach at, indoor ranges I can teach at. I've got, they're both 25 yard. I can pretty much use handguns only at one. I can use handguns or long guns at the other.
Mm-hmm.
They're, very, I've built a relationship with both of them.
Right.
Again, we sit there and I try to deal with as much of the legals as I can, especially when I get people coming in. Oh, I've been shooting forever. Okay, I don't have to really worry about sight picture and this, that, and the other. And I tell them all that the South Carolina CWP, I want you to think of this like your driver's test, okay? This is your learner's permit. You're going to take a written test and you're going to do a little bit of road test. And that means that somebody in Columbia thinks you're not too dangerous to have this little card.
Mm-hmm.
Proficiency comes after that. The day you got your driver's license handed to you, you were not ready to hit the interstate at rush hour.
Right.
You had been driving around in a parking lot and making your right turn and parallel parking and going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually through going to my classes, other classes, and I try to even send them out to other classes, other instructors. Hear someone else preach. You can hear me preach all day. That's great. You get one voice, one opinion.
Right.
Hear other people preach. But I'm trying to get them to the point that they can go 80 and a 65 in the left lane with a cup of coffee in one hand, a sausage McMuffin in the other, doing their makeup and bring it back with all the paint they started with.
Right.
That comes in that proficiency. And again, I use the car analogy a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you were driving, you're in the middle of a big, wide open parking lot on the Sunday afternoon after church, and there was no one around, and you learned there. Or in art down here, in a farm truck or something else, there was nothing to hit.
Right.
Now, you've refined that to the point that you're going 50, and you've got someone coming in the other lane at 50,
mm-hmm.
and you're passing within 20 inches of each other. You've got to refine your technique. Yeah. Think about it when you learn to drive, you had to actually think about turning on your signal, turning off your signal.
Mm-hmm.
You get a new car. You have to think about, is the gear shift up here? Is it down here? Is it a knob? Is it a twist? Is it a what?
Right.
But I go through a lot with the very basic, taking them 0 to, I know how to store it safely. I know how to load it, unload it, basic stoppages. I know all the legal stuff, and then go build proficiency and build proficiency everywhere. Students.
Right.
If I'm your favorite instructor in the whole world, that's great. Thank you so much for coming to my classes. And I love the fact you love me. Go listen to someone else. You've heard from one person. That one person ain't the greatest. Trust me.
Right.
And by that same token, the more, again, I think as instructors need to edify each other. And, you've heard from me, now go hear from someone else.
Yeah, it's always important to remain teachable. That's like one of the biggest things.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter who you are.
But,
what's your so as an instructor, I'm sure you get a lot of anti-gun people that, throw numbers at you and all this other stuff and, reasons why we should have more gun control. Like, what's your response?
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle that stuff?
Oh, that stuff is really, really simple. First off, I tell them, look, if you don't like guns, that's fine. I respect your choices.
Mm-hmm.
I go through a lot of times and I tell them, look, I didn't go out and buy a fire extinguisher because I was planning on lighting my kitchen on fire. Mm-hmm. On the way here today, I didn't buckle my seatbelt because I was planning on wrapping my truck around a tree.
Right.
The bottom line is the gun is not the tool for every purpose. But when you get to the point that it is the tool, it's pretty much the only tool. Yeah. And I want the ability to defend myself. And if you can't defend me, and it's been proven time and time and time times 10, mm-hmm. When seconds count, 911 is minutes away.
That's true.
I mean, I've got lots of friends who are in law enforcement, and get along great with law enforcement. I'm not dogging law enforcement. I worked for years on the road with EMS. I interacted with multiple law enforcement agencies every shift.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is they are stressed to the max right now. They're doing the best they can. But the simple laws of physics, Scotty cannot beam them down into your back pocket when you need them.
Right.
And so if there are 20 cops on the road in the county tonight, that would be really optimistic among all agencies. Say we probably got 15. And 35 ne'er-do-wells out looking to do something bad, they can't be there. We have to be able to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I ask them, you got a fire extinguisher in your house? Well, you have a fire department. Why do you need to have your own ability to extinguish? If you have a jack,
so what's your So what's your response when somebody says, well, people don't use firearms to commit mass shootings?
What's that now?
So when you say something like that, if you say, well, you have a fire extinguisher,
right?
Because you're not waiting for the fire department. So what's your response when somebody says, well, how many mass shootings are committed with fire extinguishers? How do you deal with it? What's the response? Like, I have my own side of it. I'm just curious what your approach to it is.
Okay. Well, I think we need to talk to your child's little league coach, because I heard that he's been smuggling bats across state lines, and they are lethal weapons. And then they're going to come to your house, and we'll take all the cutlery out of your kitchen, give you little plastic McDonald's forks. Anything is a weapon. A gun is a tool. Mm-hmm. Anything is a weapon. I can take a phone. I could take this aluminum 40-ounce cup, and trust me, it's a weapon.
Oh, is that a Stanley?
No, it's not a Stanley. It's an Ozark Trail. And someone was laughing about it the other day. I was like, yeah, I'm cheap. Our company got us, our instructors, the Ozark Trail specials.
I have a 10-year-old Dunkin' Donuts one. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't see it because of my shirt, but. So I've gotten stuff like that because I'll post memes and stuff like that. One of the ones I posted the other day, I think you probably saw it, was, saying we don't need guns because we have cops is like saying we don't need fire extinguishers because we have,
I think I might have seen that one.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I'll let them, they want to yell at me and argue with me. One thing I try to remember that 25, 50, 25.
Mm-hmm.
25% is 100% on board with us.
Yeah.
50% is in the middle, and 25% you'll never win over.
Yeah.
The ones that want to engage at that point are that 25%. And I try to realize that it's not worth my effort. I'm not going to teach a pig to sing.
You're right. I kind of use that 25 that is totally against in a different way. And it's more of like a motivational thing for me, because I go, okay, well, now I'm going to start Googling information. So I'll start looking up information, and I'll start actually finding all of the information and the stats and all this other stuff. And when I do respond, I respond with cited sources. I respond with the web links. I respond with the stats. I respond with everything, Mm-hmm. And, eventually I'll just go, okay. But those people actually help keep me on my toes just as much as any student who is a willing learner, because it makes me have to pay attention to everything. It makes me have to look at all sides of it. Like, here's the thing you're not going to hear a lot of gun instructors say. Yeah, we are the most violent firearm country in the entire world. Mm-hmm. Brazil is the only one who's behind us with tighter gun laws than we have, and they have more gun violence than we do. 100%. Here's the thing a lot of people don't pay attention to, though. We're the third highest population in the entire world. Out of 8 billion people, we have 332 million people here in this country. The next two countries with the higher populations are China and then India, who is number one, and each have over 1 billion. And they have strict gun laws. So it's only natural that we do have what would be considered a high number of gun incidents and violence. Now, that being said, if we look at the amount of gun deaths that we have every single year in the United States, I'm going to round it up, even in favor of the anti-gun people. And we're going to call it 50,000 gun deaths every year in the United States.
More than 60% of those are suicide, but go on.
100%. It's about 54% are suicides, right? And then we take the almighty AR-15 and we throw that in there. That's actually a small percentage, but that's a whole different talk show, because everybody likes to say the AR is the main course.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Here's why the AR is so popular. If you looked at all the vehicles sold, if you had 75% of them painted bright red,
Mhm.
you would then be able to say that bright red vehicles cause car wrecks because
Right.
most of the vehicles, it's a law of probability thing.
Right.
The most popular long gun sold in the United States is some version of an AR platform,
Right.
whether it's pistol, the rifle, whatever.
We'll get
But
back to that.
so why are ARs there a lot? Well, because the sheer volume of what's out there are
Right.
ARs.
I'll get back to the AR thing, but I'm going to go back to the gun violence thing real quick because you're right. So maybe 25,000 are suicide. So we'll leave it. And we're still estimating really, really high because it's actually more like 42,000 gun deaths per year. But I'm jacking it up to 50,000 to make it easy for people to process. So we'll say, even if it's 50%, that's still 25,000 gun deaths a year. Okay. Out of those 25,000 gun deaths a year, the majority of them are accidental. The actual number, the percentage of violent crimes committed with firearms, whether it be pistol, long gun, or both, is actually less than 10%. Most of it is suicide, negligent discharge, which is people doing unsafe shit because they're idiots and don't get training. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is police engagements are also added into there. So out of all of the gun deaths that are happening, it's horrible, all these gun deaths. Some of it is the good guy with the gun with a fucking badge who is actually adding to that stat. So people don't realize that. But now, so let's think about this. Even if we get it down to 10,000 people a year die of evil committed with a firearm, out of 331 million people, do you know what 10,000 people is? It's less than 0.03% of the population. Less than 0.03%. It's not even 1%. It's 0.03%. So that would be 0.0003. That is not even a registerable number in any other statistic that you throw out in the world. But people don't want to say that, and people don't want to see that because one life is too many. I get that. But if you go with that, if it saves one life, we're not going to have cars anymore. We're not going to have baseball bats anymore. We're not going to have sports anymore. We're not going to have so many things.
Kitchen cutlery.
In America, right, you have a 1 in 101 shot chance of dying by firearm, even if you don't own a firearm. It's 1 in 101. In America, you also have a 1 in 101 shot of getting killed by an automobile. It's literally the same probability, but people don't think about that.
Actually, I know auto deaths were getting up to be over 100,000 at one point.
Yeah.
And I know with the firearm deaths, and if we simplifying it out, if we take the firearm deaths, drop the suicides, we're talking about 25K versus 100K.
Right. And it's actually more like 18K. But again, we're just rounding up.
Okay. So just to make it simple, it's 1 to 4 ratio. So now here's what I think we need to do. I think we need to start sensible speed restrictions.
Right. And that's where we get into the whole thing with...
When we get into mag limits, no one needs 30 rounds. Right. Okay, fine. You bring your car to the dealership by the end of the month and have it governed at 30 miles an hour.
Yep. Or 65, whatever the highest speed limit is.
The highest speed limit in your state.
Right.
Now, if the highest speed limit in your state is 50, that's all you can have.
Right.
Number one. Number two, DUIs are bad. So here's what we need to do. You're going to have to put in and maintain an intoxilizer blow starter in your car. Yep. Well, I've never done a DUI. I've never done anything wrong.
Even if you've never been
drunk. I don't drink.
Right.
It doesn't matter. If it saves one life.
If it saves one life. That's that cry that I always love. And I get it. I understand. But here's the thing a lot of people don't realize, right? Like, you know, we talked about it offline. I podcasted for years. I've got friends who are in broadcasting. I've got friends who are professional radio guys. I know that in any type of broadcasting and any type of marketing, 101, the whole goal is to elicit emotion, whether it's good or bad. Okay. Right. And if you elicit bad emotion, like anger and rage, you're actually going to get more attention than you do eliciting happiness. And if you look back at Howard Stern, right, the king of all media, that guy, he was the litmus test for that. He was the acid test for that.
Oh,
He was the hardcore
grew up
people.
on Long Island listening to 92.3 K-Rock. So yeah.
People who hated him listened to him longer on average than people who loved him.
Yep.
And that was all it was. And that's what the media does. So it's insane. Like people just bite that shit hook, line, and sinker, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where, like, just like you said, like, you know, in the other argument that people throw, well, we need reasonable gun laws. We need reasonable gun control. People don't realize that when they say that, there are over 20,000 gun laws on the books. And many of them also have mental health requirements that are actually written into them. There are only 2 states in the union that have no laws regarding mental health. And I can't remember which ones they are, but one's up in the Northeast and one's in the Midwest. There's only 2 states out of the union that don't have anything with mental health requirements. The problem is not having sensible gun control or sensible gun laws. The problem is the ball gets dropped.
Right.
That's the biggest problem. Look at the kid who shot up the school in Florida. Was it Parkland, right?
Parkland, yeah.
29 encounters with law enforcement just in the previous year before that happened.
Right. And I'll tell you,
that ball got dropped.
If y'all are watching, we do a lot of incident reports. We do follow-up deep dives on various incidents. Our show Thursday night this week is going to be an incident report. I've got one out of Florida, one out of Atlanta, and one out of Iowa that I'm going to be doing deep dives on for the Thursday night show. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they get the red flag law discussion going on, I said, okay, let me tell you something. I dated someone once. This chick drove like crap. She was like, couldn't keep it between the lines. She was in the ditch all the time. She was leaving one day to go to work and took out my neighbor's mailbox. I live in a private subdivision. How do you take out a 2.5 car wide road, straight road going out? Was she on her phone doing her makeup, drinking coffee, paying attention to whatever? Took out the neighbor's mailbox. Now, that being said, if somebody can go ex parte and get a order to remove your guns, well, maybe we need if I can call up and get her car removed.
Right. It's funny when you mention that possibility. A lot of people,
I take everything they want to do about guns when I get in those debates, and I equate it over to something that everyone considers normal, the vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, I know so-and-so. We're just going to call her Fiona. We'll use Fiona. She was an ogre, so I think it's appropriate. Anyway. Yeah. Fiona's doing this, that, and the other half the time. So then the police need to show up at her house, take away her driver's license, and pull all the cars out of the yard then.
Right.
And she can go to court and petition to get them back.
Right.
And have to pay for an attorney to do it.
Right.
Yeah. If you drive like a Cullen, which I know a friend of mine used to have a big thing, drive like a Cullen, and they used to complain because they were on their way to work and got hit by one of my friends who's a state trooper 3 times in like a 6-month period on the same road.
Jesus.
And so she's like, you already wrote me a ticket here. He goes, didn't slow you down, so I'll give you another one.
Right.
So, yeah. And he did that. And okay. But it's like, the drive like a Cullen thing. She used to swear that was why he was going after her.
Right.
I'm like, here's my question. Whether he is or isn't, were you speeding? Yes.
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
I'm done.
Exactly.
Were you driving like a Cullen? But so let's go with this. So I think, okay, we need, again, if we've got 4-to-1 ratio, we need to quit focusing on guns. Let's start working on cars. So the PD needs to go out and take people's licenses and pull their cars away, and then they can petition to get them back.
Right.
But that's my property. Well, actually, you see,
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to call them red checkered flag laws.
Well, that's the thing, too, is like the red flag laws, like, we're going to write these red flag laws. They're feel-good laws, and they're redundant because these laws have already been in place on one level or another in almost every state. And that's what I don't get. Like, it's like, it's like writing another law about speeding. Like, you've already got laws about speeding. So, no, this one is if you're going 21 to 21.5 miles over the speed limit versus 22 to 25. Like, you're just adding more laws in play that are already in play. Like that's
right.
And again, it just goes back to that whole, let's feed this to everybody. And this is going to make people feel good. And here we go. We're doing something. We're not doing shit. Like if you look at our country, right? Our country spends more per capita than any other country in the entire world. Now, not more in general, because that would be cheating because we're the third highest population, but per capita, we spend more on pharmaceuticals than any other country in the world. Per capita, we consume more opioids than any other country in the world. Per capita, we consume more antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications than any other country in the world. And if ever there was a country in the world that should be hashtag fucking white people problems, it's this country, because we got it pretty easy. So we're medicated because we don't teach coping mechanisms anymore.
Right.
And we're not blaming that. Nobody's looking at that and going, yeah, that's a problem. Why are we doing that?
Well,
instead,
the thing is,
one of the best that people use.
One of the best ways to learn coping mechanisms is to have to develop them when you're young. And we have too many helicopter and or snowplow parents that enable the kid to get through. And so it's until he's a junior or senior in high school that he meets any real resistance, or she meets any real resistance or hardship in life. And now is faced with something that's totally foreign to them.
Yeah.
What do you mean they said no? What do you mean I got cut from the team?
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be some injustice. I've never been cut before.
Yeah, I've got
a participation trophy every year that says I'm a superstar.
100%. That participation trophy generation is a big thing that I've always said, and the one thing that I say is, you look at the school, you look at the environment that parents give for their kids, and there's so much protectiveness over your children. Like you just mentioned, we set children up for failure in adulthood by doing that. We set children up for failure by creating safe zones in schools and safe zones in here. We set them up for failure because when they get out into the real world and there's a job and a boss and somebody says something they don't like, well, you got to fucking deal with it. And that's it. And you move on and you figure out how to cope and not let it ruin your entire day.
I actually had an employee at EMS who was getting terminated for some very valid issues. And it was when I was deputy director. It might have been, I was either second or third in charge of the county. But this is a county 911 ALS municipal service. And the young lady's mother called the director. The young lady's mother called the director.
Right.
She was an advanced and immediate, an AEMT, called the director, screaming at him about what he had done to her daughter, about how he was being mean and ruining her daughter's career and her future.
Right.
And we all sat there and said, this is the new, I'm lost. 100%. And I taught briefly at a high school in 08 to 09 doing an EMT class. I was basically TAD over there from EMS, 1 hour a day, 3 days, 4 days a week. This was fun. I actually was teaching this class, and these girls, some of them were just atrocious. Now, they were good kids, okay? They were really good kids. There were a couple that had some significant issues. I mean, issues that kids that age shouldn't be dealing with.
Right.
Mom and dad broke up, and dad lives outside the county significantly, and they've got 50-50 custody, and gas has gone up so high, she's out of school 1 week at a time.
Right.
He can't get her back and forth to school. Okay. There were, kids dealing with some stuff, but some of them were not going to be eligible to sit for the state boards. I mean, I'm getting 30s on quizzes with like pictures drawn on them with crayon. I'm like, oh my God. And I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried. And there's just sometimes you can't try so much. And I got one who, didn't want to carry the book. We should get them 2 books because carrying the book back and forth home every day was too much for them.
Right.
And they're going to become an EMT, emergency medical technician. Do you know I lift humans every day? Yeah. And I can show you the thickness of the book here. It's a little bit bulky, but it's not bad.
Right.
Well, when I went to the school, it was very much of, okay, here are the grades, this, that, and the other. And they're like, oh, wow. And they're like, what are we going to tell the parents? I'm like, what? What do you mean? What are you going to tell the parents? Well, and I'm like, I've got email trails of all of this. I've, done everything. I've, well, if the parents come up here, and I finally was like, okay, I pulled my wallet out, and I always carried a bunch of my county business cards in the wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm driving the county rescue truck over. I'm in my pretty little white shirt with my little gold and shit. And so I'm handing my stack of my cards. I said, if they have any questions, they want to sit down, tell them, here's where my office is over at the county plaza. I'll be more than happy to sit down and go over their parenting skills, their child. And I was like, and they're like, I was like, you got to remember, I don't work for the school district like you. I'm going to call it like I see it.
Right.
So if you want to know what to tell the parents, send them my way. I'll send them straight.
Yeah.
And like, what? And I'm like, I'm a captain who manages adults. I've got kids who will not carry the book home. I've got kids sleeping in the desk. I've got, it's funny here. Let's see here. Mel is saying, oh my God, preach. And then, oh my God, has he met my husband? LMAO. What was that relation to your husband to which comment of his? Because I'm sure there's like plenty that have fit her husband. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm watching two different chats over here. I don't even have the YouTube page up.
Okay. You watching the Rumble chat at all? Or
I'm watching the Rumble chat. All I see is Second Amendment wasn't written because the deer were coming.
Okay, that's on the Facebook one. Yeah. That's another one of my favorite ones when they get into the whole talk about, well, hunting.
Right.
I sit down and I say, okay, so let's see, 1791, what was going on in this country? What had just gone on in this country?
Right.
How about a violent and bloody war where a group of ragtag colonists with their own personally owned arms told the Redcoats and the Hessians from, England, the basically number one country in the world, the biggest, empire in the world, and their German, associates, to go back over to that side of the pond and tell the king to stuff it.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Going on to that, to the Revolutionary War, because this is another one that comes up quite a bit, and it's the Biden regurgitated. Well, what are you going to do with your AR-15 against an Apache helicopter? Like, so many people like throw that argument out there. Well, your AR-15 isn't going to do shit. Blah blah blah. You can't fight against an F-15 with an AR-15. Blah blah blah. So like, what's your stance on that? Like, because my whole thing is like, I got two words for you: Vietnam and Afghanistan.
I was going to say Afghanistan unavailable for comment.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Like I always laugh at that. And even in the Revolutionary War, we didn't win the Revolutionary War because we had the same weapons that the government had. We won the Revolutionary War because we had some smart people who decided not to fight the way the government fights.
Right. And well, the other thing is, on the other side, we didn't have like all the weapons they had. But when we go back to this,
we had the ability to have them.
At the time the Second Amendment was written, we had military-grade weapons in every home.
Yes.
Don't tell me, the Second Amendment wasn't written for AR-15s. It was written for military-grade weapons.
It was written for everything.
It was written for military-grade weapons. I had the same right to own anything that the government did, because if they became tyrannical, they needed to know.
Yep, 100%.
But yeah, Kelly's. I love that Second Amendment. Well, it wasn't written because the deer were coming. You're right. It was because we told the king to stuff it, and his redcoats and everything else got sent back across.
Yep. Yeah, but I always crack up whenever I see those clips, of Biden talking about AR-15. You don't even need it because you can't do anything against an F-15 with it and all that stuff. Like 20 years, in Afghanistan and the Middle East has proven otherwise. You look at Russia. Russia had one of the heaviest infantry armies and one of the heaviest armored mechanized armies in the world. And Afghanistan just kicked the shit out of Russia throughout the 80s. So like, come on, dude. There's it's just regurgitated propaganda without any type of actual education.
I think at some point we have to give Biden credit for one thing, and you know what that is?
Who in God's name needs a weapon with 100 rounds in a chamber?
That's a hell of a chamber.
It really is. I actually keep several little clips of him on here. Yeah. And the other one I had, and I lost it. I'm gonna have to redo it. But when you put a brace on a pistol and a rifle and it becomes a magazine, and that's when I said, "Oh my God, somebody get Brandon before he hurts himself."
Right.
You know, he's a little lost. But again, the anti-gunners, very simple. I want the right, and I deserve the right to protect myself and my family. And
100%.
that's pretty much where I go.
Yeah.
And
100%.
Kelly says stick to pull-ups.
It's the diapers.
I don't know whether she's talking about doing pull-ups or wearing pull-ups.
No, she's
With
talking
him,
about,
it's about
she's talking about for Biden pull-ups.
well, I don't know,
Diapers.
wearing or doing. It's sort of 50-50 there.
Right.
Oh, that's great. I was at the range the other day with Minnie, who's over here in the Rumble chat, and we were laughing about the fact that the range they had a couple of 12 gauges on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, now remember, the president said you just need to grab one of them and fire 2 shots.
Right.
Anyone will run away. And it's like, okay. It's like, and then the bullets come down. But anyway, don't worry about that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, one of the things that I always get into with my students, especially if it's a new student who has never come to me before, one of my questions is always, what's your why? Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And, I get so many people that say, well, it's my constitutional right. Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay, that's right.
But you don't have to
That's
sell me
hard.
on that. You don't have to sell me on that. And so many people revert to that. Well, it's my right. It's my right. And I should be able to look. Just say I fucking love guns. It's okay to say I love guns. Like I laugh about that.
It's okay. I
love
fucking
firearms.
love guns.
Like, I fucking love dealing with firearms. I love teaching people how to use them. I love using them. I love the challenge of actually hitting a target 600 yards down range. You know what I mean? Like I love the challenge of it. I love everything about it. So I'm not one of those guys like, yeah, it's my constitutional right. Like, I'm glad it's my constitutional right. And I'm going to do everything I can to fight to maintain that constitutional right. But the reality is I really like guns.
Right. And the thing is, when years ago, I traveled a lot for the academy when I was teaching for the State Fire Academy. I was traveling all over South Carolina, and we were on the road a lot. And so, I was driving a Ford Explorer Expedition at the time. Then I went down to Explorer, save a little gas money. But because I traveled, I went out and I bought a full-size floor jack.
Right.
I had a set of tools. I had a start box. I had all sorts of stuff. Of course, had a med kit because I was a medic when ran volunteer fire around here. So if I have something to fix my car if it breaks down, I have something to deal with injuries if someone gets hurt. I have an extinguisher to deal with fires. I have flashlights, all this stuff. Why wouldn't I have something to keep myself safe from banditos on the road? It's not, now granted, I do love guns and I enjoy working on them and tinkering with them and playing with them and stuff. But on the other side of the coin, to me, it's not so much, it's my right. It's like, okay, I've got an extinguisher for a reason. I put my seatbelt on for a reason. Why do you get a car with an airbag in it when it was still back new or optional or whatever? Oh, well, if something, heaven forbid, happens, you'll be safer. Really? Okay. I
have a 94. There's no airbags. We die like men in my vehicle.
I would say I had a 92 and a 93, but after the 92 burned up, I got the Expedition. That was the first one I had with the airbag.
Oh, there you go.
But I mean, I lived on the road with that when I was teaching, but because I wasn't just going, to the grocery store, to the fast food place up the road, I needed, a little bit more road travel stuff. If you're going to be on the road from,
Yeah, 100%.
And again, it's just safety. But, well, I've definitely enjoyed it tonight.
Me too.
I'm going to throw a couple of quick promos up here on the bottom. Folks, if you're familiar with Raul and his stuff, great, fantastic, wonderful. If you're not, check his stuff out. His website looked pretty cool. I had a chance to go through for a while. As far as, I thought it was fun. Perfect practice tactical. And the thing is, I know somebody who ran a company, Practical Tactical. And so I was tongue-tied with that the other day. Practac is like, This is
Right.
one of the local dealers I deal with down here. But also, if you've enjoyed this, check out the rest of our stuff. We have a whole video library up on rumble.com. I like Rumble. We will dual stream to YouTube or other things, but personally, I really love, primarily Rumble, and that's where I put a lot of our stuff. I know most of my shows stay on Rumble just because of the fact that I can be safe on there. YouTube doesn't like us handling live firearms or handling any firearm on a live stream. Rumble's like, don't hurt yourself with it. So, you can do pre-recorded on YouTube, but to do it live stream, and so if I'm talking about or demoing something or doing a show and tell with a new toy, makes it kind of difficult. So definitely check out on Rumble, like us, share it out. And last but not least, got to throw this one out because this is how we pay the bills. If you find yourself in need of any EMS continuing education or anything like that, using coupon code Gun Club gets you a 15% discount on all of our EMS classes, and we are fully CAPCE-approved. So any National Registry, EMT, AEMT, or paramedic anywhere in the country can use these, and we do direct reporting and importing to the National Registry of EMTs. So we try to go ahead and do that at academy.valormed.net. Let's see here. There we go. We managed to pimp everything out rather well. Anything else you want to share? Or I know we had your scroll going up here.
Yeah, I just want to throw out my own plug there. Perfect Practice Tactical is located in Milford, PA. We also do New Jersey concealed carry courses as well. We're located right there where New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania come together. So if you're a Jersey person and wants to come over and play in the Pennsylvania side with some fun firearms, look me up. Okay. Phone number is 862-268-4611, and it's perfectpracticetactical.com. And I deal with levels. I deal with instruction of all levels. So I go from never held a gun before to advanced tactical from a vehicle. And everything in between. And that's with pistols and with carbines and with shotguns, home defense, countering the mass shooter threat. If there's a course out there, I probably offer something along the lines of what you're looking for. So that's about it. Thanks for having me, Sully. I appreciate you, man.
No, I definitely enjoy it. Like I said, I put this out up on the USCCA site and for all the USCCA instructors. And I've got some really interesting people coming in and out. I've got the USCCA people sort of coming in and out.
No, I can't wait to go back and look at some of the comments.
We've got to have some real fun. Like I said, Thursday, I know I'm doing a incident review on 3 incidents. One of them is out of Florida. One of them is out of Atlanta, Georgia. And then one of them is out of Iowa. And these are all fairly recent incidents. And there's sort of a theme between them all.
Yeah, there usually is.
Yeah. Well,
and it's an election year, so you're going to see a lot more of them getting shoved down our throats with the media. Well, unfortunately,
the funny thing is, if you haven't heard about the one in Florida, it's enough to make you shake your head.
Yeah,
it really is.
I'm sure.
Florida and the Atlanta one both hit, and then this last one in Iowa, I'm sure everyone's heard of. But the Florida
I haven't really gotten into anything in the last week or so. I've been kind of busy, so
we had a 17-year-old do something epically stupid in Iowa. But that one is about a week old. But the other ones are back late December. And it was, they all sort of fit the same mold. And so putting them into one, going to do the 3 incident reports. And then what can we learn from these? Let me show you the commonalities of all these. And I will also say, if you hear me talk about the formula on here, the formula is always the vast majority of firearm owners are not the problem. We've got 25% of the people who have firearms out there who are the problem, and they're usually not the ones who own or get them legally. So, again, I don't know exactly your PA laws are up around your neck of the woods. Here, we can walk in as long as we've got photo ID and clear NICS check. They can do it, and we can pretty much walk out while we wait, kind of thing.
Same here in PA. The one thing I actually kind of go through that in my classes too. With PA, where we're not required to take any training in order to get our are licensed to carry. I'll never call it a concealed carry because it's actually a license to carry. In Pennsylvania, it doesn't say concealed carry anywhere on it.
Okay.
But that's semantics.
Ours actually was a concealed carry, and then as of August 2021, it's a concealed or open carry, but you've got to have a permit to do either. It still says concealed, but it's to carry it all.
Pennsylvania is kind of weird because you can open carry without a license. But here's the thing. There's case law out there that will actually jam you up. If you're carrying without a license to carry and you're open carrying, but it's inside your waistband, you're considered concealed carrying because there's not enough of the gun visible. So it's a weird law, and I try to inform everybody of that. You can open carry and still get jammed up here in PA. But what I was getting at is in Pennsylvania, there are 12.5 million people living here, and there's over 1.5 million licenses to carry. And out of those 1.5 million people, maybe 25% of them actually have some sort of training. And that's the part where I come in. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
And
that's, everyone here is required to go through the bare minimum, but like she said, a lot of it is legal basis. Yeah. But now in North Carolina, you can open carry with no permit, no requirements whatsoever. However, if someone says it makes them feel uncomfortable, you can be charged with going armed to the terror of the population.
How crazy is that?
So
20,000 gun laws.
So, and again, here's the thing. Well, you can't concealed carry because you don't have a permit, okay? But you can open carry, okay? But if you make little old lady or blue-haired freaky person feel uncomfortable, then you're armed to the terror of the population.
Yep.
So, now, I'm lucky South Carolina, we get about 37 states with our permit here, so that's really nice. I mean, I drove back from Vegas bringing my friend's car and her dog back when she was having some medical problems. And I had one in the briefcase, one in a holster, one in my pocket, and I was fine all the way from Vegas.
Right.
But again, driving alone, middle of the night, strange roads, 2020. Yeah, I was, clanking when I walked. But
nothing wrong with that.
Don't ask what was in the trunk. But anyway.
I don't know nothing.
30 rounds of fun. Anyway, but I've definitely enjoyed it, sir. We'll have to have you back sometime. Best of luck with your business. I love the fact, again, you talk about the smokeless range stuff, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's a great training tool. Here, one thing I just want to throw out real quick. I stress this to all my students. If you go to the range, that is not where you train. The range is your report card for the training you do when you're away from the range. That is 100%. I will never change my opinion on that. The range will allow you to live fire and experience recoil in the training that you should be doing at home away from the range. You can do 99.9% of your training at home without ever having a bullet go downrange. And people that don't realize that are the people that are missing out on good training because the range is just your report card.
I can definitely see that. And I'm going to sort of come back with another big one is, yes, a gun is a wonderful tool, but it should only be one tool that's in your toolbox.
This is the biggest one.
I had a amazing medical director one time. We were adding a bunch of new stuff into protocols. And he said, I'm going to give you this shiny new hammer. And we had to literally meet with him one-on-one to get cleared to do these procedures. We studied it. We went through all this. And when we were ready, we went up and met with him in his office. And he was our medical director. And if you passed his assessment well enough, he would sign off on your paperwork and you could do it. Well, he said, I feel comfortable. You're good. I'm going to give you this shiny new hammer. Now, before you walk out of here with this shiny new hammer I'm giving you, I want you to remember one thing. If I find out that you're putting in screws with this shiny new hammer, I'm going to take it out of your toolbox and whack you over the head with it. Do you get me? The reason I say that is, again, this is a big tool. P to the 7th power. From when I was in recruit school back at the fire department back in 94, P to the 7th power, proper prior planning prevents piss poor performances.
100%.
Waking up at 3 a.m. and trying to address or deal with some type of real perceived or imagined threat, you're behind the 8 ball, folks.
Yep, 100%.
Sit down, come up with a game plan. What if with your friends? If you've got to a friend or a training buddy or someone you shoot with at the range. What if? I hear a crash right now. What if? Because you know what? You wouldn't go out to a football game, and I don't know if you follow football at all. I'm kind of a football junkie, really, really, really bad. But anyway, football and hockey, but mostly football.
Right.
But, growing up with the Islanders there, something, But I'll flat out say it. If you went out on a football game or to a football game with someone who played and you didn't have plays and a playbook and a game plan and everything else, things wouldn't go real well.
100%. Yep. One of the other things that I tell my students all the time is most people who die in firearms incidents die thinking this can't be happening because they never considered it possible. And if you don't train and you don't think about it, that's going to be your last thought. This can't be happening.
And when I was teaching for the Fire Academy, one of the ones I used to use when I did the advanced hazmat classes, I don't know if you're familiar with, we had the bad hazmat accident down here. Oh, it was down in Aiken County. Can't remember the name. Graniteville. It was chlorine rail cars.
Oh, I remember that.
Okay. Yeah. Here's the thing. The chief of Graniteville Fire Department went to bed that night before it happened, and you would have bet that man $1 million, and he would swear, oh, we're never going to have a major incident like that. The principal of Columbine driving in that morning, guess what?
Never thought
I
it would
can
happen.
promise you could have bet him anything, and he would have sworn it would never happen.
100%.
Nobody thinks it'll happen to them. No one thinks it'll be them. And you know what? The vast majority are right, and God bless them. However, if you're in that percentage that it does happen to, having a game plan, having a thought plan, I don't care whether it's, okay, if I'm leaving work and this happens, what am I going to do?
Always
we normal people live here. I'm leaving the grocery store. I got my groceries. And wait a minute. Why are those two people watching me? If we're so much in our world and we're not situationally aware, they'll be honest before we know it.
But living in condition yellow.
At least.
Always.
I've enjoyed it, sir. You have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Good night, Sully.
Okay.
All right. Be safe. Thank you.